Hi everyone, welcome to the 30th of July illustration. So I am going to create a similar color palette. I really enjoyed this previous color palette here, which is Cascade green. There I am swatching it out again, this time a little bit more saturated, so the mix has less water in there, so it's more of a deep tone, but I will lift some of it so you can see. When you start playing around with Cascade green, you can make it either very dark green or something like a turquoise, or you can even get the blue pigment come out stronger and separate. So it's a gorgeous color. Instead of the Aussie red gold, that coral orange that I have on the previous page, I decided to play with New Gamboge. New Gamboge is a color that I added to my palette a few years ago, and I think I saw it first time in Ali Brown's palette, and she was in love with New Gamboge and all the time using it, and I really liked it as well, so I got it and used it back then, and then kind of stopped using it. I moved on to Indian yellow and nickel azo yellow. Those have become my sort of favorite yellows, which are very different. They're slightly more natural looking yellows, and they have a great character to them. They are not sort of as creamy or as flat as New Gamboge, but New Gamboge is a very pretty tone, and so for that reason I decided to experiment a little bit more with it and see how I'm going to enjoy this color palette, taking it slightly lighter. Okay, for the green I will still use the Rich Green Gold by Daniel Smith and Schmincke's Gold. Everything will be linked down below if you want to check it out. And sometimes if I say a wrong color name by mistake, when I link it down it's always the correct one. So yeah, if you want to make sure everything is 100% correct, then in the links you will find everything. So in terms of the composition, I decided to again explore this cluster that I did on the previous page, but just change the composition ever so slightly. But it will be those two main aspects of the cluster. So we'll have those flower pots, and we will have also those berry looking things as well. So yeah, fairly simple. You can just move shapes and make them slightly more rounder or elongated, bigger, smaller, and change the doodling aspect of it as well. And basically the same flower shape can become new and different each time. Just doing a little bit of doodling here. Doodling has been a great part of this series, which is very relaxing. Simple lines where you just train your mind to do the same line over and over. There's something quite therapeutic about that. So yeah, doodling is really a lot of fun, and I loved combining it with these watercolor with this watercolor challenge of the World Watercolour Month. How exciting, we're almost done. Yeah, so just finishing off a couple on this side, and then obviously it felt a little bit unfinished, so I decided to balance the composition to draw another one of those berry components of the cluster down here, so that it's a little bit more filled in that way. I could have gone further and you know, add a few more botanical drawings, but you know, I just wanted to keep it nice and simple for this one, and I was more interested about trying the new Gamboge, and so this was just a little illustration that I wanted to quickly create and then start playing with the watercolors. As always, finishing with a bit of bead doodling, and that just yeah, I enjoy doing that as well. I don't know, there's something quite satisfying about creating those little balls on the stems, and I call them beads because they do remind me on you know, on jewelry when there's like a wire and some beads are kind of fixed in place and the wire is nice and stiff, and it's just creates this nice little texture as well, actually, and fun element. Okay, so here we are. I have already moved on to watercolor, and here is the new Gamboge. So the new Gamboge, like I said, it has this creamy texture to it, and it's actually really pretty. And looking at it now, as I was editing the video, I realized that with the new Gamboge there would have been another color that would have worked so beautifully, similar to what I did on the previous layout, where I have used buff titanium to neutralize and make things a little bit more pastel. I could have done this with like a turquoise watercolor, adding buff titanium, and again creating that slightly grayish turquoise with a milky base. I think it would have worked stunningly with this new Gamboge, and I will try it at some point. Yeah. So the Cascade green is a lovely and fun color to play with, but I realized that the less I use of it in a small area, the better, or the more I like it, because I then can maneuver it with a bit of water and shear it out and get the blue pigment come out a bit more, which makes it a lot more interesting in my opinion. Because sometimes you can also overwork it and it becomes just very flat, almost dark green kind of muddy color in a way. But if you just put a little bit of the pigment down, then it really shines beautifully. So here I'm adding the Schmincke gold ever so slightly and shearing it out on some of the blooms, and then creating a stronger effect on the others. So I quite like a more thicker mix of this Schmincke gold on the leaves. So this rich green gold by Daniel Smith, or core green gold, which seem to be quite identical. So with those colors, I love the gold to be quite saturated. There is something about it just mixing into the watercolor and sitting there beautifully. So every time when I tilt the page of the sketchbook, then you can see the gold shining so beautifully, and I find that so mesmerizing. I love it. And then another very thick mixture of it, I just load it on the tip of the brush, and exactly like I did on the previous page, just add small dots of this gold, and yeah, it's very saturated, so it will be shining quite strongly. So that's pretty much it, and I wonder what else I have been doing here. Yeah, so this has been very useful in rediscovering colors that, you know, haven't been used for a while. And looking at that palette, there are a few other colors that I haven't used in a long time, including Prussian Blue, another beautiful blue color, but maybe a little bit overpowering on its own. But again, buff titanium, here I come, and you can just mix them and create more subtle versions of that dominant color. So 30th of July, we are done. Just drawing here a little bit, and enjoy the close-ups, and in 2 hours we will meet up again for the last episode of this series, which is going to be the 31st July illustration. So see you then.